Iran's rulers promised to destroy my country, murder my people. And the response from this body, the response from nearly every one of the governments represented here, has been absolutely nothing. Utter silence. Deafening silence.
The war between Israel and Iran, it hide a big secret. In order for you to understand it, watch this.
Iran lied about never having a nuclear weapons program.
As long as I'm president of the United States, Iran will never be allowed to have a nuclear weapon. Good morning.
All right, let us restart the counter from the beginning. In April the 1st, the government of Benjamin Netanyahu, they had launched an attack against the Iran embassy in Syria.
Emergency workers scaled rubble inside Iran's embassy compound in Syria after a suspected bombing by Israeli warplanes on Monday. Tehran said the strike killed 7 military advisors, including 3 senior commanders. The target, according to Iranian state media, was top Revolutionary Guards commander Mohammad Reza Zahedi. He had been a senior commander in Iran's elite Quds force, the Corps' overseas arm, according to the Guards. Iran's ambassador to Syria, Hossein Akbari, said Tehran's response would be harsh. Syria's foreign minister condemned the attack.
The U.S. must be held accountable for the attack on its consulate building in Damascus. It blames Israel for the strike, which killed 2 senior commanders of the Islamic Revolutionary Guard, as well as 11 other people. The supreme leader has released a statement expressing his condolences. He also says, quote, "The vicious Zionist regime will be punished at the hands of Iran's brave men, and it will be made to regret having committed these crimes."
A strong response. That is what Iran is promising after its consulate section in Damascus was hit by allegedly Israeli airstrikes, killing 7 military commanders in the Revolutionary Guard, 2 of them brigadier generals, one of the highest ranking officials in the Revolutionary Guards. Now, what we've been hearing inside the country is that there needs to be a swift and forceful response. This is very important, and it's something that many are waiting to see happen.
For me, at first when I saw all this happening on the TV, I was not surprised. I was not either shocked by what was happening over there, as other people think that this is one of the things which usually happen in the Middle East. But instead, for me, I took it as a very big sign of showing that we are about to engage yet in another World War III. Because on one side, we're having Israel, which is well supported by its own big brother, the United States of America, the first and large military in the world. On the other side, we're having Iran, of course, which is well supported by Russia and China. So, the attack which Israel had launched on Iran embassy in Syria, of course, it was a way of opening the door to the World War III, which is between the Western versus the Middle East with its allies. And this war, it had already started taking place right now in the Middle East, where there's been conflict for so many years. Now, there is one question which is being asked. And the question is 20 million US dollar. The question of 20 million US dollar. It is a question which each and every secret service of each and every country in the world, they are willing to put millions of money on the table. Oh yes, putting the money is good. But the question is, what are the intention behind all this? What could be the intention of all this that could make, whether it is the enemy or the person involved, to make this kind of sacrifice in order for them to be the winner at the end of the day? In which objective that can push or motivate all these people to invest a lot of billion of money in this conflict that is taking place in the Middle East? Because we need first to understand what is their motivation and the objectives that is pushing them behind all this reasonable. And here, the objective of Benjamin Netanyahu, it was that clear. First of all, he had to make false declaration concerning the war in Palestine.
Let me say this again tonight. Israel will not remain silent on this massacre. Hamas will pay the price, a very high price.
Perhaps you can now understand why Israel is not joining you in celebrating this deal.
Thousands of Israelis took to the street for a second day, pushing past police lines and converging near the home of Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu in Jerusalem, many blaming his delay in signing a ceasefire deal for the discovery of 6 more dead captives in Gaza.
The government of Israel is a threat to the world peace.
For the first time since mass protests and a labor strike broke out following Saturday's news of the dead captives, Netanyahu addressed the country.
I told the families, and I will say it again tonight, I apologize and ask for your forgiveness, because we couldn't bring them back alive. We were close, but we failed.
Protesters say Netanyahu is prioritizing military gain over the return of captives, pointing to his continued insistence that Israel maintain control of the Philadelphia corridor as part of a ceasefire deal. That's a non-starter for Hamas and a reason U.S.-led negotiations have been stalled for weeks. U.S. President Joe Biden said he was close to presenting a final proposal, but that the Israeli Prime Minister hasn't been doing enough to move the deal forward.
Mr. President, do you think it's time for Prime Minister Netanyahu to do more on this issue? Do you think he's doing enough?
No.
According to the Israeli Health Ministry, the 6 captives found over the weekend were shot at close range, 1 or 2 days before their bodies were discovered. A Hamas military spokesman says Netanyahu's delay in signing a ceasefire and prisoner exchange deal made him responsible for the deaths.
More than 40,000 Palestinians have now been killed since Israel's military offensive into Gaza began on October the 7th, according to Gaza's Hamas-run health ministry. A new round of ceasefire talks are expected to take place today. The US, Qatar, Egypt and Israel are meeting in Doha, but Hamas has said it will not participate.
Across Israel overnight, hundreds of thousands took to the streets in the biggest protest since the war began almost 11 months ago. In Tel Aviv, police and protesters clashed. Nationwide, some 24 people were arrested. Today, protesters blocked a main road in the city, demanding that Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu reach a deal to return the 100 or so Israeli hostages still in Gaza.
I think we have a criminal government who lets the hostages be murdered only for the sake of the coalition. And we have a prime minister who doesn't think of the good of a country, but only of his own good.
When the Israel Prime Minister had released this report, of course this has raised different opinions in the worldwide, because people, they have their own report of what has been happening in Palestine, and compared to the number which the government of Benjamin Netanyahu they've been giving, it shows that these are 2 total reports which does not match at all. But that was not all. Things even end up getting worse for him. With the moment when he tried to challenge the authority of justice, he wanted to be the only man who have to decide for the entire Israelites. In other words, he wanted to be the only commander-in-chief without respecting any rules.
For months, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's sweeping judicial overhaul proposals had divided Israelis, triggering massive protests across the nation virtually every weekend.
Israelis today waking up to a deeply divided nation, a country more divided potentially than at any other point in its 75-year history. This is what the front page of all of Israel's major Hebrew newspapers look like today. It's all black, and at the very bottom it says a dark day for Israeli democracy. And that is how many of the protesters are feeling. We spoke yesterday with a woman who was demonstrating outside of Israel's parliament. She had tears in her eyes and said she does not know what she is going to tell her children about their country's future. A lot of concern today. This morning, one of Netanyahu's religious allies has introduced a bill that would treat religious studying of the Torah, on par with national military service. Now, it's not clear if that bill is actually going to go anywhere, but it gives you a sense of the kind of future that some of Netanyahu's allies want to create and what so many Israelis are afraid of. There is, of course, another side to this. Netanyahu would tell you that these reforms were necessary to curb the power of unelected judges who for too long had been blocking the will of Israel's more conservative, more religious majority. Netanyahu speaking to the nation last night, appealing for unity. But the protests continue. We saw very large demonstrations overnight, protesters blocking major highways, police using water cannon to try to dislodge them. The doctors are on strike today. It is basically impossible to get anything other than emergency medical treatment from doctors in Israel today. And this morning, the Bar Association has petitioned the Supreme Court to strike down this bill, which would weaken the Supreme Court. Now, if the judges decide to do that, we are in uncharted constitutional waters. Nobody from Netanyahu to constitutional scholars to the protesters on the street can tell you what happens next. There are also major questions hanging over the institution that is supposed to be above politics in this country. That is the Israeli military. Thousands of Israeli military reservists have said they will stop showing up for duty in protest at this legislation. That is going to have a particularly severe effect on the Air Force.
So Netanyahu have to go far to the point of reforming the justice system in Israel by changing some judges and put people who will have to comply with what is his visions. This have raised up a lot of division among the Israelites. There were those who were pro-Netanyahu by supporting what was taken as his decisions, and there were those who were standing against what he took as a decision to touch the justice system. But when you combine all this together, including to what happened in October the 7th, all these have raised a big number of people to come forward and start protesting against the government of Benjamin Netanyahu.
Our residents in Israel have taken to the streets for 37 consecutive weeks to express their opposition to Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's proposed judicial overhaul. Now, opponents say the legislation limits their Supreme Court's ability to impose checks and balances over the government's authority. The resistance has not deterred Netanyahu.
Democracy is supposed to be checks and balances of the three branches on each other. In Israel, the judiciary has no checks and no balances.
We are not there. We, the people, are defending our democracy against an attempt to destroy it from within. We are defending democracy. You should remember, democracy should be capable of defending itself against those who are using the very tools that it provides, the very freedom that it bestows upon the people in order to destroy it from within. And that's exactly what happened in Israel. It's not a judicial reform. Our Chief Justice, a lady named Esther Hayut, defined the following way. Said this is not a reform, this is an attempt to crush the independence of Supreme Court and push Israel out of the family of democracy. That's exactly what happens, and we are not going to let it happen.
When your people are divided, your leadership, it is at a very big danger. Your power as politician or as a president, it will be neutralized because you'll be having different people who speak different opinions, and that will bring a serious instability to your leadership. And in this kind of case, There is only one way that can make you survive. And you only have one choice to make. The solution in order for you to survive as a president against this kind of people who are divided with different opinions, it is for you to come out with a government of national unity. It is through this government of national unity you have to come up with one element that will bring all these people together behind your back so that they can be able to support you. In order for you to bring all these people behind you, in order for them to support you, it's by you coming up with something that will be for their own interest. You have to come up with some trade, serious trades against this nation, that you can convince all these people that if you don't unite right now, well, we will all be doomed. You have to come up with something very solid that can convince all these people to be united behind your back. What kind of trade or reasons, or should I say something solid that the government of Benjamin Netanyahu can use in order for him to unite all the Israelites behind him? Of course, this time he has to think for no one else but the state of Iran.
We're determined to prevent Iran from developing nuclear weapons. We leave all options on the table, and containment is definitely not an option. The Jewish state will not allow those who seek our destruction to possess the means to achieve that goal. A nuclear-armed Iran must be stopped. Ladies and gentlemen, if it looks like a duck, if it walks like a duck, if it quacks like a duck, then what is it? What is it? That's right. It's a duck, but this duck is a nuclear duck. And it's time the world started calling a duck a duck. My friends, Israel has waited, patiently waited, for the international community to resolve this issue. We've waited for diplomacy to work. We've waited for sanctions to work. None of us can afford to wait much longer. As Prime Minister of Israel, I will never let my people live in the shadow of annihilation.
There we go. With that only, it had given the answer to the question which we asked earlier on of 20 million US dollar. What was the intention of Benjamin Netanyahu? First of all, this man was in a serious, difficult situation. He was kind of like trying to survive politically because his political career, it was put online. And the only way for him to survive politically, it was for him to reawaken up the threat of Iran once again. And the only best way to win Iran is by having their big brother called the United States of America behind them.
After Israel declared independence in 1948, Iran was actually among the first Muslim-majority countries that recognized the new state. So what happened then? The Iranian Revolution in 1979 turned everything upside down when the Western-backed Shah regime was toppled. Ruhollah Khomeini, the leader of the Islamic Revolution, believed that it should be exported throughout the Middle East and the world. He saw Israel as part of the so-called West in the middle of the majority Muslim world as a problem. And ever since, the Iranian regime doesn't recognize Israel as a state, and leaders don't even mention its name. This is one of Tehran's oldest squares. In 2017, this clock was unveiled here, counting down to 2040, to the destruction of Israel. Because that is part of the propaganda of the religious regime in Iran. The square is often the scene of protests like these, transporting the anti-Semitic, anti-Israel rhetoric of the Iranian authoritarian government. The square we mentioned earlier, guess what? It's called Palestine Square, for a reason. After Hamas' October attack on Israel, people in Iran protested here in support of the Palestinians, some even in support of terrorist group Hamas. But remember, Iran is an authoritarian state. So these protests might not reflect what people actually think, because we've seen in the past that protests have been orchestrated by the regime. It's important to understand that ever since the Iranian Revolution, the Iranian regime presented itself as a vocal supporter of the Palestinian nuclear weapons. The Iranian regime has repeatedly said its nuclear program is only to produce energy.
ایران دنبال سلاح کشتار جمعی نبوده و نخواهد بود.
It's just that world powers such as the US, China, UK, and the EU don't believe them. And Israel doesn't believe them either.
Iran lied about never having a nuclear weapons program.
And just so you know, Israel was one of the biggest critics of the Iran nuclear deal. But that's a story for another video. So for Iran, its nuclear program is a way to put itself in a position of power in the Middle East. And Israel sees the Iranian nuclear program as threatening to its existence. And by the way, Israel is believed to possess nuclear weapons as well, but it doesn't acknowledge this.
So, Netanyahu, by reawakening up this threat against Iran and by declaring this war with a common enemy, it was gonna make each and every citizen of Israel to be lying behind him, to give him all the support that he deserves, because they all know that Iran, it is their common enemy. But what makes him to become even more clever is by the time when he decides to play the game of killing two birds with one stone. When I used to grow up as a kid, we all went to school and see on how it was forbidden for any country in the world to not produce the nuclear bomb. In other words, an atomic bomb.
Back to Iran. Here are the country's key nuclear facilities. Over the years, there have been many sabotage attacks. Take this nuclear facility in Natanz, where experts say an explosion in 2020 set back Iran's nuclear program by up to 2 years. Iran has blamed Israel for them. And Israeli officials have implicitly threatened to attack Iran's nuclear facilities. Israel's intelligence agency Mossad is also believed to have targeted Iranian nationals, including a series of assassinations of high-profile nuclear scientists, such as the father of Iran's nuclear program in 2020. Israel, however, has never officially admitted to it.
But I had to ask myself a question to know, if every country they have agreed to stop not producing this nuclear, why is it only applying for some countries such as United States of America, France, and not other nations in the world? Why this kind of rule, it had only to be applied to other nations, while to other nations it should not be applied? You know, this reminds me of the round table game. Imagine, for an example, you are seated on the table, this round table playing to the cards, and then it happened that the person who have lost the game, they end up putting their hands on their pew and point it on us, all just because they are angry for the fact that they have lost the card. After this man had pointed his pew on us, you and me, of course, who were seated on that table, that's for the fact that we are not harmed. That's because we don't have something similar to what this man had pointed on us. Of course, we'll have to bow and obey his rules. Why? Because him is in a possession of a gun, which me and you, we don't have. That is how these things called nuclear bombs works. And these countries, when they came up with this rule of saying that no other nation in the world should not produce this nuclear bomb, it is because they want to be the only one who have to be in possession of this nuclear. They want to be the only one who will have something to use in order for them to trade another nations in the world. Let me explain this in a very simple language. The nuclear army it is something that can make one nation to have a last word to say to another nation who does not have it. Because if you have to attack or engage yourself into a war with another nation which had a nuclear bomb, you'll have to think twice before you attack them. Do you know why? Because this nuclear bomb, once they hit it here, it can destroy you and the entire country. After that, nothing will remain of you. This nuclear can wipe you off from the map of the world. I remember a prof at school used to tell us that Israel, they actually have a nuclear bomb, but which they never accepted or admit that they do have it.
And Israel sees the Iranian nuclear program as threatening to its existence. And by the way, Israel is believed to possess nuclear weapons as well, but it doesn't acknowledge this.
With that being said, that simply means to say that Israel, they are #1 military in that regions because they're in possession of a nuclear weapons. They have different weapons which make them become one of the powerful country in that Arabic regions. On the other side, we're having people who are saying that no, actually Iran, they are busy developing their all civilian nuclear. So I'm kind of like confused and I don't know which side it is the truth. Well, maybe you have some details, and feel free to drop it down in the comment section so that we can have a look on it. But according to Benjamin Netanyahu, who had to go all the way in the United States and address the UN Assembly, demonstrating in black and white on how close Iran they have developed so quick their nuclear bomb and they're this close, they need to be stopped.
For the first time, Israel's prime minister issued a firm deadline to Iran for possible military action, using a simple drawing to warn the UN that Israel believes Iran will reach the point of no return on its nuclear program in just a matter of months.
Secretary of State Hillary Clinton met with Benjamin Netanyahu. President Obama was campaigning in Virginia Thursday. The White House said too busy to meet with the prime minister. Earlier, he laid down his red lines for stopping Iran's nuclear program.
This is a bomb. This is a fuse. In the case of Iran's nuclear plans to build a bomb, this bomb has to be filled with enough enriched uranium. And Iran has to go through 3 stages. The first stage, they have to enrich enough low enriched uranium. The second stage, they have to enrich enough medium enriched uranium. And the third stage and final stage, they have to enrich enough high enriched uranium for the first bomb.
Netanyahu spoke a day after Iran's President Ahmadinejad from the same podium had called Israel uncivilized Zionists. Netanyahu said Tehran was already 70% toward getting enough nuclear fuel for a bomb and has to be stopped within months.
If these are the facts, and they are, where should a red line be drawn? A red line should be drawn right here.
President Obama told the UN this week there is more time before Iran reaches the point of no return.
America wants to resolve this issue through diplomacy, and we believe that there is still time and space to do so.
American intelligence does not yet believe that Iran has made the political decision to actually build a weapon. What does Israel think?
Whether or not Iran has made the decision will become irrelevant once we can no longer stop it.
Now, why did I say Benjamin Netanyahu is trying actually to kill 2 birds with 1 stone? In the first position, he's trying to unite his people who are having different opinions so that they can all come behind his back by fighting the one common enemy, which is Iran. And he wants to become the hero for his people. He wants to be the commander-in-chief so that his people in Israel, they should not turn their back on him. On the other side, he's kind of like trying to fight against Iran so that Iran should not be able to develop their nuclear program. Because if Iran succeed to go ahead and develop this nuclear bomb, of course, it will make them also become one of the powerful country in that regions. And that will bring a lot of instability in that regions, whereby you'll be having now Iran on this side, Israel on this side. Both they do have the nuclear bombs, which can make them crash on each other at any time. Because if Israel can't be able to stop Iran from developing this nuclear bomb, it will make them be nothing in the Middle East. Do you know why? Because Iran is going to become even more powerful. Because with all the military which placed them already as #1 in the Middle East, plus the development of this nuclear bomb, guys, this was going to make Israel to suffer, because Iran was going to come on them in a very hard way. So they were left without no choice than to make sure that they fight Iran by all means in order for Iran to not develop this nuclear bomb. The development of this nuclear bomb by Iran, it's going to make Iran become the only boss in this Middle East. And they will gonna be the only people who will be in charge, or who will have the last word to say, because they'll be in possession of something that no other country have it in that region.
This is not a clash of civilizations. It's a clash between barbarism and civilization. It's a clash between those who glorify death and those who sanctify life. For the forces of civilization to triumph, America and Israel must stand together. Because when we stand together, something very simple happens. We win, they lose. And my friends, I came to assure you today of one thing: we will win.
As long as I'm President of the United States, Iran will never be allowed to have a nuclear weapon.
Now you understand why the government of Benjamin Netanyahu, they had launched a missile on the Iran embassy in Syria, because he wanted to solve two problems with one pen. He wants to kill two birds with one stone. We have answered the question to the $20 million US. Was that all? No. You guys, you saw recently how the Israelite government of Benjamin Netanyahu, they went all the way inside Iraq this time. To do what? They went there to assassinate the leader of Hamas. That it is another sovereign country. They violate all the UN charter or rules by going over there and kill this man.
Political leader of Hamas, Ismail Haniyeh, has been killed in Iran. That's according to statements from Hamas and Iran's Revolutionary Guard. Iran state TV is also reporting he's been assassinated in the capital. According to the Revolutionary Guard, Haniyeh and one of his bodyguards were killed in a strike on the building in Tehran where they were staying. He was in the capital meeting President Masoud Pezeshkian ahead of his inauguration. So these are the latest pictures of that meeting in Tehran on Tuesday. He then attended Pezeshkian's swearing-in ceremony. Iran says it's investigating the killing of Ismail Haniyeh.
This is what happened to the Al-Shati refugee camp in northern Gaza during Israel's war in 2023. It's where Ismail Haniyeh was born. He was the son of Palestinian parents who were forcibly displaced from their home in what is now Ashkelon after the State of Israel was created in 1948. Haniyeh experienced firsthand the challenges faced by millions of Palestinians in their search for statehood. But his future and influence would turn out to be different than most.
Americans take responsibility for giving unlimited cover to this enemy to commit to these massacres, war crimes, and genocide.
In 1987, Haniyeh graduated from the Islamic University of Gaza. The same year, a Palestinian mass uprising began against Israel's occupation, also known as the First Intifada. In its efforts to liberate Palestine, the group Hamas was founded, and among its younger members, Ismail Haniyeh. His journey would soon become linked to the rise of the Palestinian group. Israel imprisoned Haniyeh several times for taking part in protests against the occupation. After serving his longest 3-year sentence, he was deported to southern Lebanon along with hundreds of Hamas members. Haniyeh returned to Gaza in 1993 after the signing of the Oslo Accords and became a close confidant of Sheikh Ahmed Yassin, the founder of Hamas. Together, they survived an Israeli assassination attempt, though Yassin was killed months later. His rise to prominence came in 2006, when Hamas participated in the Palestinian legislative elections. The group won a parliamentary majority, making Haniyeh Prime Minister of the Palestinian Authority. But his appointment angered the international community, who halted aid to the PA, placing the governing body under severe financial strain. Hamas is classified by many Western nations as a terrorist organization. Months of conflict between factions led to President Mahmoud Abbas dismissing Haniyeh and dissolving his government. This would result in an independent Hamas-led government in the Gaza Strip, headed by Haniyeh.
This seizure should not break our will and should not turn this conflict into an internal Palestinian conflict, and that conflict should be against the parties that imposed the siege against the Palestinian people.
In 2019, having voluntarily stepped down, Haniyeh left Gaza and began living abroad, for which he faced substantial scrutiny. Haniyeh faced criticism for his absence from the Strip during Israel's war on Gaza in 2023. He led Hamas's diplomacy from a number of locations as civilians were massacred in the Strip. Ismail Haniyeh's influence on the history and politics of Palestine will likely stay for years to come, and for many, he will remain a symbol of resistance in the face of occupation and adversity.
Now, let us put ourselves in the position or in the case of the Iranians. Iranians, they find themselves in a very delicate position or situation right now. But how did Iran find themselves in that hard position? Of course, because they have to think twice before they attack or they respond back to all the provocation of Israel. They have to think that if we attack Israel right now, behind Israel, there is what we call their big brother, which is the United States of America, #1 military world. Sometimes for what? To make Israel pay for what they have done. They needed some time to remove Israel from their way, while they still need some time. On the other side, it was going to make them lose all their people who believe in Iran, and not only people of Iran actually, but it was going to make them also lose people who trust in them, like other nations who are allies, who believe in the leadership of Iran in the Middle East. And here we're talking about countries such as Syria, Lebanon, Palestine, many countries who are found within Arabic regions. Because for them, Iran, it is the boss which has been there to protect them against the Western. In fact, when you lost the trust that all these people had given you, if you were Iran, well, that was going to make you lost that respect that this nation usually give to you. And that was one thing that Iran did not want to afford. So this had left the government of Iran without no choice. They have to react. Yep, they have to react as soon as possible. But how will they react with all this on the table? So they have to come up with the documents or the revenge of Qassem Soleimani. Qassem Soleimani was one of the most powerful military, or should I say, the commander-in-chief of the government of Iran. But in 2020, just before the world pandemic, former President of the United States of America, Donald Trump, decided to eliminate him by assassinating him.
The aftermath shows an attack that was deliberate and sustained. With around a half dozen explosions, the Americans firing with drones clearly didn't want to miss their target, Iran's General Qassem Soleimani. He'd reportedly just gotten into Iraq from Beirut and was leaving Baghdad airport when he was killed in a convoy of vehicles along with a top Iraqi militia leader. President Trump tonight.
Soleimani was plotting imminent and sinister attacks on American diplomats and military personnel, but we caught him in the act and terminated him.
The imminent attacks planned by Soleimani targeted U.S. diplomats, U.S. military personnel, and facilities that house Americans in Iraq, Syria, Lebanon, and the region of the Middle East, a senior State Department official told reporters today. Qassem Soleimani was no ordinary general. The U.S. officially classified him as a terrorist, but in Iran, he was a national hero. Specifically, Soleimani was in charge of spreading Iranian influence around the world, and he was extremely good at it. Smart, charismatic, ruthless, strategic, and bold, Soleimani knit together a loyal network of armed groups from Iraq to Syria, Lebanon to Afghanistan. Anytime Iran attacked oil tankers in the Persian Gulf and then denied it, or attacked oil facilities in Saudi Arabia and denied that too, U.S. officials saw Soleimani's handiwork. His power made Iranians proud. Today, Iranians in the thousands came out to show their love and their anger. Soleimani was arguably Iran's most popular leader. For years, Soleimani operated in the shadows, and he spilled a lot of American blood. He was the secret architect of a long campaign against U.S. troops in Iraq after the 2003 invasion, killing hundreds. Back then, his face was barely known. But over the last few years, Soleimani has gotten bolder, showing photographs of himself on battlefields around the Middle East, issuing statements. His pride and increasing profile may have made him easier to track down and kill. There was talk in Iran Soleimani might be a future president, or perhaps even a supreme leader. Today, the man who has that role, Iran's top Ayatollah, visited Soleimani's family and promised severe revenge. The most immediate concern is in Baghdad, where Shiite militia leaders loyal to Soleimani, the same militias that for days attacked the U.S. embassy, will take to the streets tomorrow to mourn and show their rage.
Myself at that time, I did not have any idea of who was Qassem Soleimani until I have to see some of his documentary showing who was this man. I end up understanding that, well, he was a heavyweight when it comes to the Iran army. That man was one of the most powerful men in the army of Iran. And there we start seeing how some world leaders, they were even afraid of him.
What the United States did yesterday should have been done long ago. A lot of lives would have been saved. Just recently, Soleimani led the brutal repression of protesters in Iran, where more than 1,000 innocent civilians were tortured and killed by their own government. We took action last night to stop a war. We did not take action to start a war. I have deep respect for the Iranian people They are a remarkable people with an incredible heritage and unlimited potential. We do not seek regime change. However, the Iranian regime's aggression in the region, including the use of proxy fighters to destabilize its neighbors, must end, and it must end.
Qassem Soleimani is responsible for the death of American citizens and many other innocent people. He was planning more such attacks. President Trump deserves all the credit for acting swiftly, forcefully, decisively. Israel stands with the United States in its just struggle for peace, security, and self-defense. Thank you.
The death of that man, it was something which was celebrated by many world leaders because they know they have get rid of someone who was standing them right here on their neck. They could not be able to survive or live with their mandate, knowing that this man is still free out there. But at the same time, the death of this man, Qassem Soleimani, it had left many Iranians with the spirit of revenge. Yep, they want to revenge him.
And anger at Friday prayers in the Iranian capital for the assassination of a man who led the charge against ISIL in Iraq and Syria, and whose death seems likely to lead to more conflict.
God willing, it is now time to clear and cleanse the region of these devils. It is now time to show more resistance to the Americans and show our resistance with action, to tell those Yankees to get out of here, get lost.
For Iran's Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, Soleimani was a trusted confidant, a member of his inner circle. His killing in a targeted attack, the most extreme escalation in tensions between Tehran and Washington in recent years. Khamenei warned there will be revenge.
The cruelest people on earth assassinated the honorable commander who courageously fought for years against the evils and bandits of the world. Soleimani's martyrdom will make Iran more decisive to resist America's expansionism and to defend our Islamic values. With no doubt, Iran and other freedom-seeking countries in the region will take his revenge.
Anywhere where there's an American military presence, Americans should leave those countries immediately. But if I was in the Emirates, I would leave now. If I was an American in Iraq, I would leave now. If I was an American any part in Southwest Asia, I would leave immediately.
Now there, the Iranian government, they were right here, like they were put across the corner. Because now they have to think twice before they get to escalate or to revenge the death of Qassem Soleimani. Because they had to think that if we have to attack Israel right now, well, this war is going to be escalated because their big brother, which is the United States of America, #1 world militaries, they were gonna escalate also on them as we're seeing it right now. So, what do they need to do? Here, the Iran government had two choices: to keep quiet and lose their leadership in the Arabic regions, or they will have to escalate and revenge by attacking Israel and any other country such as the USA, who have killed their commander of the army. So, how they're supposed to do all this? That is when the Iran government decided to attack on American military base. But they don't do that just for fun. They plan to play to this cleverness game of trying to call the government of Syria and letting them know that we'll be launching an attack tonight against the US military base. What was the reason behind that? Of course, the reason was for the US to be able to prevent all this attack by letting their militaries and everyone to evacuate.
As each round came in, the concussion and the shockwave would just kind of rock the buildings, and it would push doors in and push them back out. So we did get some advance warning by a couple hours. We weren't sure what the threat was at the beginning.
This is one of the areas damaged in the blasts. It was a military barracks, and many soldiers here had only a few minutes to evacuate to nearby bunkers before the missiles hit.
Me and my partner, we hit the floor and we felt the big boom, and it got real quick. You're just like, damn, I hope the next one doesn't fall on me. It's just, everything just crosses your mind.
You're a soldier, you're trained, but were you scared?
I was. I'm also human. I was scared, yeah.
As long as I'm president of the United States, Iran will never be allowed to have a nuclear weapon. Good morning. I'm pleased to inform you the American people should be extremely grateful and happy. No Americans were harmed in last night's attack by the Iranian regime. We suffered no casualties. All of our soldiers are safe, and only minimal damage was sustained at our military bases. Our great American forces are prepared for anything. Iran appears to be standing down, which is a good thing for all parties concerned and a very good thing for the world. No American or Iraqi lives were lost because of the precautions taken, the dispersal of forces, and an early warning system that worked very well.
Now, you see that the escalation of this revenge, this war, which Iran had to go for by attacking the USA military base, which was located in Arabic regions. It was short and well planned. But why? Because Iran had to at least give an answer to all the anger which people of Iran wanted to revenge the death of Qassem Soleimani. Because if they did not do so, they were gonna lose that credibility of those who still trusting the leadership of Iran and those who are members or allies of Iran in the Arabic regions. So they have to find a proper, easy way to come up with this kind of plan so that they can be able to cool the hearts and the anger of all these people who were found in the Arabic regions. With this cascade of Qassem Soleimani, I believe by now you understand where I'm coming with all this. In the reality, Iran, they have reacted in the same manner or in the same way that the USA with Israel, they had reacted. And they did all this by sending a couple of drones which never kill a person. Oh yes, I'm referring to the attack which Iran had launched a couple of drones in Israel, which could not be able to reach down.
Explosions lit up Israel's night sky as interceptors took down dozens upon dozens of Iranian-launched drones. Israel's military spokesman said the nation's defense systems detected incoming drones, cruise missiles, and ballistic missiles launched from Iran and its proxies.
Together with our allies and partners across the region, we are operating at this very moment to defend Israel from Iran's attack. So far, we have intercepted the vast majority of incoming missiles by Israeli systems.
The damage to Israel was far less than had been feared. Israeli officials said one child was hurt and a military base suffered minor damage.
We are at a critical moment for the region, and it is important that all parties take steps over the coming days to refrain from escalation and calm tensions. Escalation is in no one's interest.
Our goal is to de-escalate and then get back to the issue at hand, securing an end to the conflict in Gaza by getting a ceasefire in Gaza through a hostage deal.
We urge the West and Jerusalem to follow suit and reject the practice of provocative use of force in the Middle East, as they are fraught with extremely dangerous risks and consequences for the whole region.
伊朗方面表示，
China calls on the parties concerned to show maximum calm and restraint and resolve their differences and disputes in accordance with the purposes of the UN Charter.
The scale and nature of Iran's heinous assault, the first direct attack from Iran on Israeli soil, poses grave risks to the security and stability of citizens across the Middle East.
The Middle East is on the brink. The people of the region are confronting a real danger of a devastating, full-scale conflict. Now is the time to defuse and de-escalate.
You are wrong. This attack crossed every red line, and Israel reserves the legal right to retaliate. We are not a frog in boiling water. We are a nation of lions.
It was precise and only targeted military objectives and carried out carefully to minimize the potential for escalation and prevent civilian harm.
Please note that out of all these missiles that went all over in Israel, they did send some missiles which have to go and land in some of the Israel military base in order for them to just send a little bit of message. You see, all this conflict that we are seeing in the Middle East and all over the world, it is something that can affect me and you soon or later. Because one day, me and you, someone would like to provoke us by force. Of course, I believe we all once came across these kind of situations in our daily life. But we all know that provocations always need a reaction. When someone provokes you, they want you to react. And here we're talking about a reactions which will be taking place under the emotions. Because we are all being provoked. And once we are angry because someone had provoked us, we would love to react. And we will react to the level of trying to become even more brutal toward these people, more than the way to attack us. But in the reality, in order to respond to such kind of provocation in a better way against this kind of people, it is by using our intelligence. And we can use our intelligence with these three methods. The first step is to respond to the question which has to do with 20 million US. We need to be able to read and understand what are the intention of the provocateur. We need to ask ourselves a question to know, why does this person want to remove our mask in order for us to react to their provocation? In fact, you will notice very well that there is always be that one reaction from the person who's provoking you. If you look them very well into their eyes, you will notice that they don't provoke us for no reasons. If you look into their reactions, you will see that the motivation behind their provocations, it is because they are waiting for us to react in a very bad way. They want us to react out of emotions. Because reacting under emotions, it will blind you and make you do stupid things that you're supposed not to lower yourself to that point in order for you to do those kind of stupid things. When we're under emotions, we won't be able to see clearly. We won't be able to think. Because when we are under the emotions, we will behave like a chicken which they had cut the head off. So, the first stage, it is to be able to control our emotions. Second point, if you want to be able to defeat someone who had provoked you, then you'll have to dig 2 holes. One for you, one for them. Just in case, if you let your emotions deduct you or tell you what to do. Because when you're being provoked, emotions will come towards you. And if you have to fall for it, it will destroy you. You will end up making certain mistakes which can find yourself into a serious trouble. Hence you find some people, they'll be inside jail, and if you have to ask them questions to know, how did you get here? They're like, no, it was a mistake. I did not mean to do it. I was just doing this and that. Why? Because they react under emotions. So, if you want to defeat your enemy, well, you have to be able to save yourself from not following with them. Because if you have to go and use your own emotions, it will be kind of like you lowering yourself to their same level that will make you become like them. And that is not what you need. The third and the last stage, revenge yourself. I know what I said does not match to what I just tell you now. But here, guys, when I'm talking about you revenging, yes, you have to revenge, but don't revenge yourself in a brutal way. Because revenging yourself in a brutal way, it won't take you anywhere. You have to revenge yourself in a very good way, in a very special way. The best way to revenge yourself against someone who's been provoking you is by not acting like they did. I can even go far by saying that the only good way to revenge yourself is by becoming the best ever than your provocative. How do you become the best ever than your enemy? It's by creating your own potentials, the best of you. You bring them out. This will make you become unique from your provocateur. When you do this, when you become the best version of yourself, when you become your own inspirator, your provocateurs who've been provoking you, hoping that you will react in a very different way under emotions, well, they'll start getting angry. They'll start having hatred towards you. Do you know why? Because you did not react in the way or in the manner that they were expecting you to react. You have reacted to your own ways. You have focused on the person that you are instead of you focusing on the person that they want you to become for them. And that will make you become the best than him. And for the fact that they are aware that you are the best than them, that is what's gonna make them sick. And they will fail to destroy you. Why? Because they can see that you have destroyed them instead of them destroying you. That is how you respond to provocations. Guys, we are all aware of what is happening around the world. We are all aware of what the USA they've been doing in the world. They'll go to one country, putting conflict among nations, bringing instability. All this just because they want to pass their message to each and every state around the world, saying that we are the big brother. You can't say nothing because we are the one who are having the last words. We also how they've been intimidating other sovereign country leadership out there. When they do something wrong, they don't admit it. They prefer to be respected even when they're doing things wrong. Crime which is being committed in Ukraine, that's what they considered as a crime. But crime which is being committed in the Middle East, especially in Palestine, they don't see that as a crime. You also how Israel has been provoking, attacking Iran. Yet, when Iran reacts, they kind of like seeing this as a good opportunity in order for them to attack Iran. You had Joe Biden speaking out saying that now that Israel is planning to respond back with their attack on Iran, is even giving them some strategies of what they have to do by going to start attacking the Iran oil field. That is the kind of big brother that the world is having today. Instead of calling for peace, is actually even giving some strategies on what they have to do. That's not what we need today. That's not what the world needs to settle for today. This has to stop right now. We want peace because the world can't be free and happy if there is no peace. Thank you so much for taking your time to watch this video until now. We really do appreciate your presence here, guys. Before you leave, make sure that you give us your thumbs up, like this video in your numbers, especially if you believe that what we are saying here, it makes sense. What we are saying here, it's something that will benefit you in one way or other. Don't leave us without liking this video. But if this is your first time to watch our videos, we're inviting you to subscribe to the channel right now so that whenever we are here live, you don't miss any of our videos. Thank you for everything. We really appreciate your time. That will be all for now. Continue to be yourself. Be good, be kind. Have respect for everyone in order for you to be respected. May God bless you all. I'll see you again very soon in our next video. Ciao, ciao.